I only smoked cigarettes for 2 weeks, after which I switched to nicotine gum. And I stayed on that for 4 bloody years, bro. And I'm not the only one. Oh, yeah, mate. I'm off the ciggies, bro.
Oh,
it's bad
good
for
on
you.
you, mate. Good on you, mate. That's solid stuff.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate. Cheers, mate. Have you seen my vape?
Nah, I haven't. I have some Zins, though. You want a Zin?
Yo, keen. Zin. So now I'm 90 days plus. Actually, it's probably more like 4 or 5 months now, free of nicotine completely. All right, so here's the thing, right? When in Rome, go to the Colosseum, have a cheeky look at the gladiators, watch a Christian get eaten alive by a lion. That's just what you do, okay? You just do it because that's what people do. Listen, I was never a smoker. I always was like, nah, that's terrible for you. I'm not even gonna start. It's a terrible idea. Until I started going traveling. And every time I went traveling, it was that thing of like, it's part of the culture. Let's figure out what makes this culture tick. I was never one for sights and sightseeing and stuff like that. I always want to get to the bottom of the culture itself. What makes these people different to me? And that's what I always enjoyed about traveling. While I was in Nepal, you took a bus and people would just be smoking in the bus. You know, it was so, and cigarettes were so cheap and everyone was doing it. And I was like, all right, you know what? I had read some studies about how addictions are very much based on your environment. So if you get used to doing a certain routine in a certain environment, you're actually pretty much not going to continue that routine and that if you change environment. So a lot of like opiate addicts that went overseas in Afghanistan and fought in wars and stuff, like the soldiers, when they came back to America, they did not continue to take heroin. So I said, you know what, what's the risk? What's the big deal? 2 weeks, we'll be back in New Zealand. I'm not going to continue smoking. It'll be all good, right? And it just so happened that when I got back to New Zealand, I had an appointment with my GP. They do the usual questions. I told him, hey, well, you know, I don't smoke, but technically, last 2 weeks, I've been hooning, right? And what he says, he goes, oh, cool. Do you want me to prescribe you nicotine gum? And I was like, nicotine gum, right? That's not smoking it. That's not even vaping it. You know, most people, they quit smoking and they go to vaping, which, let's be honest, how much it must be better for you, sure, but I'm not sure it's better for you because now you're able to do it whenever you want. You can do it in the car. You can cheekily do it in the office, you know, if you know what you're doing. You can even do it on the plane if you know what you're doing. The point is, it's a lot easier to vape than it is to smoke. So I'm not sure that, you know, it's actually healthier, but whatever, let's assume it is. But this is not even that. This was nicotine gum, not even the Zins, not even, you know, the new craze and stuff. It's just like Nicorette, you know. This is the tool to stop smoking. Yeah, of course. Yeah, sign me up, doc. Sign me up. And that never stopped. It's very hard to start to think about like quitting nicotine gum when there is no quote unquote side effects. There's no bad things. There's no bad breath. There's no yellow teeth. There's no, you know, people would always talk about the good things about nicotine, right? Oh, as long as you don't smoke it, the nicotine itself is a nootropic, right? It helps you focus, right? There's no studies that, you know, necessarily show, this causes cancer, you're going to die early. All the stuff that you can see easily with cigarettes. When you buy a pack of cigarettes, there's all those photos on the front of them, right? People's lungs falling out, a shriveled pee-pee the size of my pinky, right? All those things, you're like, oh God, no thank you. But you know, when you go to the pharmacy and you get a 3-month supply for $5, okay, a 3-month supply of nicotine gum for $5, bro. What's the point of why would I stop? It's not breaking the bank. It's helping me focus. Right? It's all these benefits and all, you know, we hear Huberman and all this stuff. Although he talks about the negatives, it's like, well, yeah, but that's for smoking, not for gum. It's just very hard to quit when there's no direct, like, you gonna die, stop this shit or something bad will happen, right? It's very hard to actually commit to this quit that we're going to talk about soon. So what are the issues? Why even quit? Right? Why even quit? If you've listened to this podcast at all, you probably know I have ADHD. I might have mentioned it once or twice. And I came across this video by Russell Barkley. He
Nicotine
talks about
treats ADHD. In fact, we have 3 drug companies now that are exploring variations of the nicotine molecule. The problem they're having is that when they split off the part of the molecule that is addictive, it also tends to be the part of the molecule that is also beneficial. When teens with ADHD start smoking, they will rapidly accelerate their reliance on nicotine because they self-medicate. It does treat their disorder.
All right, so as you can see, a PhD ADHD expert is like, nicotine helps ADHD, with a caveat, with a very, very big caveat. It only helps when you have no tolerance. And if you have tolerance and you take the same dose as your previous dose, it doesn't help. It no longer helps. So what you have to end up doing, if you're using nicotine to help your ADHD, which as I was definitely doing, you got to constantly increase the dose. Every time you dose, it has to be slightly more often, slightly larger dose, etc. You're starting to pop 2 gums instead of 1, and okay, the 1 milligram gums aren't doing it anymore. Let me go to the pharmacy and ask for the 2 milligram gums, and before you know it, you have tripled, quadrupled, whatever your dose. Okay, and the thing is, if you want to keep getting the benefits, you have to keep increasing the dose. So at some point, you're going to have to switch to stronger and stronger methods of ingestion, okay? Whether that's the gum being higher dosage, whether you start, picking up cigars, shisha, you say, oh man, you know what? I really need, it's a stressful time right now. Let me quickly buy one of the disposable vapes. I won't use it for too long. I'm just stressed right now. It's almost like an anime, the power creep. At the beginning, the protagonist sucks and he's shit ass and he finds a stick and that's like saves him from the slime. But then by the end, he's fighting universal, multi-dimensional gods with the power of telekinesis, right? It's the same thing. You just can't, you keep using that stick because the slimes are getting bigger and the dimensions are calling. So that's essentially the first issue, right? If you're prone to this type of stuff, and I know some people can somehow have like 1 cigarette a week. I don't know how the fuck you all do it. I'll be honest with you. I know people that can quit. They'll stop smoking for 6 months and then they buy a pack and just smoke it and then they stop again. And I'm like, how are you doing this? We'll talk about it. It's impossible for me. There's no way I'm going through that again. We'll talk about it. But what really tipped it over the edge, the dosage creep was an issue, but it didn't seem like that big of an issue by itself. What really pushed me over the edge was some studies I found about hormonal changes. And I'm, an amateur athlete, you could argue. I don't know where I stand, but I train a lot, right? I do a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I care about my performance. I care about my recovery. And, to do all these things to try to maximize my testosterone and can always talking about, oh yeah, maybe I'll get on some steroids. Maybe, obviously I'm not going to, but there's always that joke. And then to find out that nicotine might be fucking up my hormones, I said, hold the phone. I need to quit this shit. So I ain't no scientist, okay? So I'm not going to give you studies and try to cross-reference them and all this stuff because Andrew Huberman's already done that. He's already out there for that. What I'm just going to do is just read out what I found, right? So research has indicated that nicotine lowers testosterone by reducing luteinizing hormone, whatever the hell that is. One study from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, I'm a magician, not a scientist, observed a decrease in testosterone among smokers, but similar effects have been noted with nicotine use alone. It's not just cigarettes. It's also the Zins. 2024, the boys are getting off the Zins. Nicky Ryan, stop the Zins. Please sign my petition for Nicky Ryan to stop the Zin. No one that doesn't do jiu-jitsu understands that reference. So here's another one. Nicotine has been shown to impair REM sleep. Studies like those published in Nicotine and Tobacco Research highlight nicotine affects sleep architecture, decreasing deep sleep and increasing sleep disturbances. This could be why the testosterone stuff is also getting fucked up because you're not getting the right recovery. Your hormones that are supposed to be released during the night aren't getting released or whatever. Again, I'm just reading really skimming the surface of some science. The last thing that I definitely felt in my effects, which we'll talk about, several studies discuss how nicotine can elevate cortisol, your body's stress hormone, which can contribute to anxiety and interfere with recovery and muscle building. Again, What the hell are we doing, boys? Nicky Ryan, stop the Zin. Okay, so I heard somewhere that this was the case. I looked into it and I was like, oh my God, I need to quit. Fuck me. And now quitting this was fucking rough. Again, I know some people seem to handle quitting nicotine a lot easier. I also saw some studies showing that like ADHD people are more likely to be addicted to nicotine, but also they seem to have harder or like worse withdrawals. Now, here's the thing. The withdrawals that people talk about, right? Which is when you think about quitting something, you think about craving that substance, right? The craving of the nicotine, it ain't shit. It feels like hunger, whatever. I'm just hungry for 3 months. Who cares, bro? Who cares? What really fucking sucks, what really is the worst thing about quitting, the anxiety, the self-loathing, the depression, the anhedonia, the waking up every single day thinking catastrophic thoughts, bad things are going to happen, there is no joy in my life. Not only is there no joy in my life, the withdrawal erases every joyous memory you've ever had. So when you feel like you have no joy in your life and you start to scan backwards in your mind and you start to think through your memories, you can't find a fucking happy memory, bro. And that right there is the hardest thing, because the only memory you find of when you felt joy, can you guess it? The last time you had a piece of gum, bro. The last time you had a vape. The last time you had a ciggy. Those are the only things that come up. And so the withdrawal and the cravings and all that stuff, whatever, dude. Whatever, dude. What really sucks is the mental state that those things put you in. Because now all of a sudden it's affecting the way your thoughts are structured, the beliefs you start to create about yourself, about your life, about about sort of the situation you're in. All of these things, you don't even notice they're happening because you just think, oh, they're thoughts. You don't realize that it's the nicotine oftentimes. All right, so let's talk about how I quit, right? So it was way too overwhelming to go cold turkey. I know people recommend that. I think if you can do it, it's the best way, because fuck going for that long, it sucks. But in a way, the fact that it went longer than 3 months made it so that I'm not going to relapse, essentially. I'm not going to be, who knows, right? But fuck, there's no way I'm putting myself through that. No amount of fucking pleasure is worth going through the 6-month ordeal that I went through. Hell no. Okay. What I ended up doing was, at the very beginning, when I was like, oh fuck, I need to quit, right? I just started this is a term called like self-binding, right? Which is basically you start to limit, at first, actually, I just measured how much I was intaking. So if you can measure it, then you can improve it or decrease it, right? So I just started measuring. Okay, today I had 12 milligrams added up, I had 6 gums today. Okay, tomorrow it was a stressful day, I had 8. Okay, the next day I had whatever, right? I just started measuring it. Then when I was ready, I set a limit and I said, I'm only having this much per day. Okay. And the way I did that, I just started I set myself a goal, like, okay, I'm only having 8. And then I split that so that at every, whatever interval I set is when I would have a gum. So there was no discussion of, oh, I feel more stressed, let me have one early. None of that, right? I was still going to have my nicotine, but I was going to have it on my alarms. At fucking, my first one would be 12. This next one was 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, right? Whatever. This habit of doing this, I did this for quite a few months actually, because I just kept telling myself, yeah, I'm at least like keeping my dose the same. It's not getting higher. This was a really good habit for me because I was able to then take out willpower. It was no longer a question of whether or not I was going to have a piece of gum. It was just like, my alarm goes off, I'm having one, right? When I was ready, I started decreasing it 1 or 2 milligrams at a time. So 1 gum away. So I was going, all right, 12 to 4 now, right? I did that for like, I think it was a couple weeks. And then, no, when I was ready to go down, I just went, I think, week by week. So every week I decreased it by 1. So it was like 12 to 4. Then it was 12 and 2. Then it was like I went down in milligrams. So then I was having like 1 milligram ones. And then I went like 12 and then 1 milligram instead of 2. And then done. Okay. And that whole process was like quite a long process. And the whole time there was this, like, as I said, it was the craving, But it wasn't the craving that was really fucked up. It was the emotional turmoil and the lack, the anhedonia and all those things that was terrible. But even then, it still wasn't as bad as when I went from 1 milligram to 0. When I went from 1 to 0, that's when shit really hit the fan. Okay. So first 3 days, 100%. That's the worst bit. Okay. But it's the worst bit in terms of craving and in terms of your body's just going through it, right? Week 1 and 2, pretty similar. They're pretty bad. But again, I feel like as it gets easier, it gets harder. Because when you first quit, you got your first 3 days, then you have your first 2 weeks, you know that shit's going to be hard. You're bracing, you're gritting your teeth, you're pissed off, you isolate yourself from other people because you know you're going to get triggered easily, you're going to be shouting at things, road rage, all that shit, right? I went through it. I mean, fuck. I'm glad I didn't do something stupid on the road. Honestly, that's the level of rage I was feeling. But then once you hit the 1 month mark, right? All that like intense emotion is kind of gone. All that intense craving is kind of gone. You're still left with a constant feeling of hunger. That's how I would describe it. It's the closest analogy. But it's the fact that you're still feeling depressed. You're still feeling anxious. You're a month in, so it feels like you quit quite a long time ago, and you're still feeling shit. Like you still don't feel like you're okay, right? 2 months. Again, even though everything's getting less intense, you're still depressed, anxious, all of these emotions that you stop attributing to the fact that you're quitting because it's been 2 fucking months. And so as it gets easier, it actually gets harder because you almost start to believe a lot of these like anxious thoughts. You start to believe a lot of these things like, oh yeah, I'm never going to feel joy again, right? All of these, you almost create this new negative self-belief that's based on the fact that you're withdrawing. But you don't realize it anymore because it's the withdrawal and the intense periods was so long ago. So this is the part that I think was the hardest for me. This is the part that no one talks about. It's like, oh yeah, bro, like, you know, you 2 weeks, you'll be fine. All good. Like, you know, no problem, you know, the withdrawals. Oh yeah. It's this and that. These are the symptoms. You feel anxious. You feel angry. You feel like this, 2 weeks, whatever. But no one talks about like the depressive states that it puts you in long term until they say around 3 months, 90 days is about the time that takes for your nicotine receptors to go fully from like, you know, when you're introducing this nicotine, this external nicotine, your body creates new receptors. Essentially, when you take that source of extra nicotine away, your brain has all these nicotine receptors built up that now it has to kill, literally, because it's, you know, homeostasis. It's trying to conserve energy. No need to have these things if they're not being used. So that's why it feels so shit. It's literally part of you that's dying. Literally how I heard it. And that was the greatest thing that I, you know, visualized as this was happening. So now, actually I'm more than 3 months now, but I'm fully back to baseline. I don't crave at all. And oh my goodness, I am so glad I did this, right? I'm so glad that I went through that bullshit. Even though it didn't seem like it was going to be a lot of benefit at the end of the tunnel, I'm so surprised at how much it's actually improved my day to day. So my mood, super stable now. I can wake up and not feel like something's wrong, right? When you go all night without having a dose of nicotine, you wake up in a state of craving. So you wake up with the first thought being, something's not right. Now, when that happens over and over and over again, it builds up this like negative thought loop the first thing you wake up. And unless you have a vape or a gum right away, which I wasn't doing because otherwise, again, the dosage will keep increasing, right? So I had to have time set when I could have a dose. Unless you're doing that, unless you're just like happy to just increase the dose indefinitely, you're gonna feel like shit every morning that you wake up until you finally get that release. The thing is, if you're keeping the dose the same, it's not even a release. It's just like oh, okay, I'm back to baseline. It's not even like a nice feeling anymore. That's the crazy thing. You're just doing this to stay normal. It's crazy. So anxiety, anger, oh God, the anger. Every day I'd wake up grumpy as fuck, dude. Grumpy as shit. How can you look forward to your day? How can you try to have an idea of like, oh, yo, I'm gonna win this day if your first few hours are miserable every single time? How are you gonna build momentum? The depression, all that kind of stuff, very much gone, right? Surprised me. Like I just thought, you know, I was having issues, ADHD, all this stuff. I didn't realize that like being constantly on a roller coaster of up and down, craving, release, would actually change my thought patterns. Like I did not have that as an idea before I quit. That's crazy. The next thing, my boredom tolerance went up. This is the biggest issue I have as an ADHD patient, you could say, is that I struggle with boring tasks. It's very fucking difficult for me to do a task that I don't find interesting. And that's actually a reason why we self-medicate, right? With things like nicotine, because I can do something that's boring and also do something that's fun at the same time, and I can get it done, right? But in quitting and becoming back to baseline, my baseline is way higher than I thought. The next thing, finding joy in completing tasks. This is, I guess it's that real dopamine, right? Dopamine is meant for motivating you to do hard shit. And when you're constantly upping your dopamine with substances for free without achieving anything, just because you can, you're going to screw up that system that's supposed to give you pleasure when you complete hard things. So I'm actually, I'll make a video or I'll make an edit and I'm like, I get a bit of a rush out of it, whereas before I needed the rush to even begin. That's the thing. So this has been huge, right? Falling asleep was much easier. Again, we talked about that study that showed that cortisol levels, anxiety, sleep architecture. Because the thing is, I was able to fall asleep, but I would always wake up quite tired still, right? I would need like 2 coffees to get going. I would need my hit of nicotine to get going. Whereas now I wake up before my alarm and I'm like, I kind of want to keep sleeping, so I get my 9 hours, but I'm like, I can't keep sleeping because I'm rested. Like, it's crazy. That's been a huge thing. My sleep is way better, way better. And I think these are sort of all cyclical, right? Because if your sleep gets better, then you're able to process your emotions better, which then allows you to have a more stable mood, which in turn probably allows you to have more less impulsivity and enjoy things more, which in turn allows you to go to sleep on time, which in turn, right? So all of these things feed into each other. It's not like the nicotine is directly responsible for each single thing, but it's definitely a huge improvement that I did not expect, because for the longest time I was like, why would I quit? What is the point? What am I going to get out of it? I'm not smoking, right? Like, I'm not going to die of cancer, supposedly. I don't know how bad nicotine gum is for you long term, outside of these hormonal changes. But man, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. If you're still stuck on the Zins, if you're still stuck on the vape, you tell yourself, oh, I quit ciggies, but I'm on these things. I highly recommend it. The one thing I will also recommend is trying NAC, NAC. It's a supplement. I sort of only had it towards the end of my my quitting attempt, I guess it was successful, but my quitting journey, whatever you want to call it. But it's been real. It was real helpful. I wish I started using it earlier. Real helpful at keeping those withdrawals and those crazy mood swings away. So I highly recommend trying that if you have struggled in the past. And it's crazy now as well when I see people smoking or vaping or having a cigar, right? As much as those things are awesome in terms of enjoyment, right? Like, oh man, cigar was so fun, right? But I sort of feel a bit of empathy now. And some people don't have a problem, as I said. So maybe I'm just projecting. But it's not even, I'm not trying to be on my moral high horse and like, oh yeah, look at me, I quit, you know what I mean? But it's genuinely makes me feel sad because I know where that was and I know how bad that feels. There's a video that I watched recently about this guy flexing about how many cigars he smokes on a talk show. And it's a badass clip. It's funny and all that kind of good stuff. But it also made me sad. Like, let's take a look at it.
What number of cigar is this for you today now?
This is my 10th or 11th cigar. I smoke between 15 and 20 cigars a day.
Yeah.
15.
And it's very exciting.
Hasn't your doctor said to you, now, George,
My doctor is dead.
Yeah, so it's a funny video, right? It's a funny response, the timing, all that good stuff. Cigars are fucking really fun to use, right? But when you're having 15 to 20 cigars a day, right? I don't care how much you enjoy them. I don't care. I was on the smallest dose ever, and it helped my symptoms and my anxiety and all these things so much to quit. I was on 1 mg towards the end, and quitting that was hard, and I know how much that helped me. This guy must be on, I don't know what the dosage is for daily nicotine intake for this motherfucker, but goddamn, his day-to-day experience must have been so shit. I guess if you just continually smoke, you never feel the withdrawal. I'm telling you, man, waking up and the first thing you think about is I'm not okay is not a fun feeling, man. It's not a fun feeling. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. If you got anything out of it, please like and share and all that kind of stuff. If you know someone that is looking to try to quit, maybe, send them a link to this video. If even one person gets any value out of this, then I'm happy. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.